Hello, and welcome to this session where we deep dive into the institutionalization of NEC contracts here in Peru. My name's Sarah Bunting. I'm the Director for the Department for Business and Trade based here in Lima, Peru. And I'm joined by my colleague Sofía García, Deputy Director and Head of Infrastructure for this same team.
And I feel very honored and grateful for the invitation to this conference and to be able to share the journey that we've gone together with the Peruvian government regarding the NEC contracts.
We're excited to see the translation for the first time of NEC contracts into Spanish and its use here. But could you tell us a little bit more about the journey?
Sure. So let's go back to 2017 when Peru signed its first government-to-government agreement, and it was for the implementation and delivery of the 2019 Pan American Games.
And for the benefit of our audience, so our government-to-government agreements, or G2Gs, are a collaboration mechanism between the UK and Peru, where we provide technical assistance to support the implementation of large-scale infrastructure projects, knowledge transfer between UK expertise and into Peruvian public system. We also, for example, support the use of project or program management offices and promote the use of agile and transparent procurement processes.
Because of the magnitude of the event and the complexity of the projects that were going to be implemented, the government experimented with different tools. But one that was really important was the NEC contracts that allowed to deliver sports infrastructure in less than 2 years. And it was actually valued in around $1 billion.
But I think it's probably important to dive a little deeper into why this agreement was really needed.
Well, the country was lacking in infrastructure delivery. But back in the day, really the infrastructure sector was characterized by lots of arbitration processes, stoppage of works. So what NEC contracts gave, first of all, they allowed to distribute risks and gains proportionately among parties. They also allowed a mechanism of flexibility that really was very new for the public procurement system, and that gave trust to the market. It really established like a mechanism of collaboration between parties. And this collaboration, trust, accountability, and transparency was really new and game-changing for the country.
Fantastic. So this was the start. Could you tell us the programs that we're looking at the moment and some of the other things where you've seen it directly into the public procurement law of how it's changed?
Yeah, so really when the games were finished, the question was, so what now, right? So this was great, this was amazing, it was really important for the optimism of the country. The G2G was still lasting like 1 year after the games were finished. And that extension allowed the government to have and buy the first facilities management contract in the history of the country and actually in the history of South America. So this kind of contract allowed the public sector to have facilities that were very well maintained, that 5 years later, high-performance athletes have where to train and to prepare themselves. They have allowed communities that have never been able to practice sports such as rugby or hockey or softball in Peru to practice them in very well-maintained venues. Lima was able to bid and to win to be the host city of the Games in 2027.
Fantastic. So Sofía, could you tell us a little bit more about how NEC contracts continue to be used in this country?
So NEC contracts' reputation has grown strongly in the last years. In 2020, after the Games, the second G2G agreement between the UK and Peru was signed for the reconstruction of the north of Peru. The first agreement was with the Reconstruction Authority, and then it was signed with the National Authority for Infrastructure. So this was really an investment of $7.5 billion for education facilities, health facilities, and as well for the prevention of flooding. Through that signing of this G2G, NEC has been implemented across the country, delivered very successfully. 1 year after that, in 2021, the third G2G agreement between the countries was signed, and this was for the implementation and delivery of 75 schools across the country as well. They use NEC 4 contracts, so every school has been delivered in around 21 months, which is really like less than half of the time that a regular school is implemented through a regular mechanism.
How did the market respond to that? How all of these different new projects coming out?
So we've received really positive feedback from contractors, highlighting like the collaborative spirit of the contracts, highlighting the transparency, as well as like the easiness to deal with the counterpart. So as I was saying before, this like equilibrium between the public and the private sector is more equal, is more stable, and it really like gives trust to them. It has also allowed for the government not to spend millions of dollars in arbitrations, because many of the works are stopped and they go to arbitration. So not only the work is stopped, but the government spends a lot of money going through this legal process. So really like the mechanism is clearly proving fast delivery of infrastructure and establishing a new market where contractors are actually now supporting what is going to come next, which is that the NEC contracts are not only part of G2G agreements.
So as that means NEC contracts are going to be put into public procurement legislation outside of G2G agreements. So it means that anything that goes out through procurement, NEC contracts as a standardized contract is recognized here.
Indeed. So as part of the government's efforts to enhance the infrastructure ecosystem, the Ministry of Economy and Finance has recently worked on the complete reform of the procurement law to come into force in March 2025. The work that we've been doing together as governments is embed the standardized contracts within this procurement law. Entities in the government that don't have this umbrella of the G2G are going to be able to use NEC contracts as a regular contract. This is really going to be game-changing for them.
And something that we've been doing as the British Embassy, signing an MOU with MEF and NEC, Thomas Telford, is helping facilitate that. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more?
So the MOU that we recently signed has allowed, well, in the first place, to translate the contracts to Spanish. It's the first official translation of the contracts to another language, and it's going to be in Spanish for Peru, but the potential of the market is the whole region. We are doing together with the government is they are going to be choosing 4 pilots, 4 entities where NEC contracts are going to be experimented with to implement projects. We're going to support them throughout all the process, and NEC is offering trainings to the Ministry of Economy and Finance and to the Auditor and Controller General, which is very important in securing and establishing this system where, again, transparency and accountability are key parts.
But what is the future of NEC here in Peru?
So we are very pleased to announce that this whole journey is going to result in the translation of the engineering and construction contract in the first place. So that's going to be like the beginning, the user guides and the trainings. And we're expecting to launch this next year. With this new package of documents translated, we're going to keep supporting the Peruvian government regarding how we can start translating other contracts in the future. It's really like listening to them, what is it that they need. So the ECC was clearly the first one. We're waiting for the final translation.
So, to conclude, the journey here in Peru with NEC, the successful implementation of that and its legacy has meant that it's brought about the opportunities for NEC to be used in those much bigger, broader infrastructure projects, and has fed into that policy making, which I think, as the UK, we are incredibly proud to be partnering with Peru on this and be part of the ecosystem on infrastructure, and we will continue to do so. And we're also super proud to be able to work with NEC and to be learning from their expertise and seeing how things develop around the world too. And we look forward to working alongside NEC in the future as well.
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
Thanks so much for your time.
Of course.